Hi everyone, Scott with CyberScribe.org, and in this Python byte we're going to be talking about list comprehensions. So what list comprehensions are is they are a method of making lists from other values, and basically what you're doing is you are defining a list and its contents at the same time. So the most basic type of pseudocode for that is, it's not really pseudocode, but new list is you're going to add an item to that list, and that item comes from looping through this iterable here. So then the question is, what is an iterable? Well, that's just an object that contains other objects inside of it. So you have lists, tuples, dictionaries, sets, ranges, any object that contains other objects within it. That is an iterable. So one thing you can do when you're creating list comprehensions is think about how would you create a list from an iterable right now. Well, you would do a for loop, and you would just, for item in old list, new list create item, new list append item. So basically what you can do when you're first starting out with list comprehensions, before you get the hang of them, is just work backwards from that original loop that you would have used in the first place to create this new list. So that's what we're going to do for two examples here, and we'll just see how it goes. So example 1, and we're just going to do a pretty simple one, just add some numbers to a list. So we're going to say numbers equals list, and be aware I think there's this walrus operator that's pretty new, and you might not have to create the list before you add the values to it, but that's for a different Python byte. So here what we're going to do is we're going to say for num in range 0 to 10, and we're going to say new, well, not new, but numbers dot append num. So pretty simple. For a range of 10, add those numbers into the numbers list. So you would expect numbers here to just be what it is, 0 through 9. So you can do the same thing, but you can do that with a list comprehension. So if I go, numbers 2 is num for num in, what is the range? 0 to 10. That's it. And if we go to numbers 2, that's the same value. So these are identical here. One line here to do it, and a couple lines here to do this. So this is pretty basic, and list comprehensions are very powerful. You can really do a lot with them. This is like the most simple thing. There's debates on the utility of adding the same thing to just another thing without really doing anything to it. But the point is you can do a lot with that. So the next example we'll do is show a little bit about that. Next one is, let's say we have a list of fqdns. These are just random keyboard smashing fqdns, fully qualified domain names that I just took from here. So if we go and we want to create a list out of these, and let's say we want the host names, so then we have our list there. So then what we do is we'll just do it with a loop first. So we'll say for fqdn in fqdns hostnames.append fqdn, but we're going to split it, and then we're going to take the first element. So we should have a list here of A, B, C, D, E, W, KWLAN. And that's what we have. So that's great. But let's do it with a list comprehension and just do it on one line. So I'm going to call this one hostnames2, and let's just build it with copying and pasting from the other one. So here it's a list. Next thing what we're going to do is we're going to go for fqdn in fqdns. Let me just copy it correctly, and we'll paste. So that's the end of your list comprehension. Now in the next video I'm going to talk about conditionals, where you can put a conditional in that, like if something, which is useful. But right now, for a simple one without any conditionals, your for loop is going to be in the second part of your list comprehension. And the first part is the value assignment. So basically here, it's a little bit backwards. So your value assignment, which is what I have here. Remember, this we don't need to append anything because we're creating it right here, the list. So basically you're splitting on the period, you're taking the first element, that's your value right there. Next is your loop for fqdn and fqdns. That's right here. fqdn here, fqdn here. That's where it transfers. So, before I was talking about, num for num in this. Well, here we're actually doing something useful with this value, not just duplicating it. So let's go look through this and see if it is the same thing that we expect. It should be ABCDEWKWLAN, and it is. So this is a little bit more useful, maybe, of a list comprehension, where you can actually kind of manipulate the data instead of just copying it. And that's a good start for learning list comprehension. So like I said, when you're going through these, if you do not have the logic, because it's kind of backwards, if you don't have the logic completely up and running and you think it should work, but it doesn't, well, basically work backwards and just, as you're learning this stuff, work backwards and just do it how you normally would do it, and then translate that to a list comprehension. And the more you do that, the more it'll just come more naturally without, you'll be able to just write the one-liner just by itself without having to kind of translate, okay, well, this is the value, this is the loop here where it goes. But for learning, I think that's a pretty good technique of doing it your traditional way first, the way that you have always known, as loops are one of the first things that you'll learn in Python. But then translate that into the list comprehension. So I'm going to do another video for this, and I'm going to have use some conditionals and do a little bit more advanced type of list creation. So stay tuned for that, but for the time being, at least now you know what list comprehensions are, you know how to create them, and how to kind of work your way through creating them with basically doing it the original way first. So that's all I had for this Python Byte, and stay tuned for the other Python Bytes.